My name is JT Van Zant. I'm a fly fishing guide on the Gulf Coast of Texas. Being on the water has always been the secret to unlocking my soul. I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in this life. And that feeling inspires deep thought and conversations with my clients, who are all of varied backgrounds. I truly enjoy sharing perspective on the human experience with folks I take fishing. Drifting, a YETI Presents podcast, was created with the goal of capturing those candid conversations with people who inspire me and sharing them with an audience that has the same sort of restlessness and curiosity that I do. I have found that the best way to provide wisdom and hope for future generations is to learn from the folks that have blazed the trail before us and have made tough decisions in the pursuit of living an extraordinary life. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening to Drifting. Alvin Dedeaux is a lifetime fly fisherman who has a deep knowledge and understanding of the rivers throughout Texas, from way out west on the Devil's River to the lower Colorado River just outside of Austin, and all the way down to the coast. Alvin is a fly fisherman's fly fisherman. He discovered the sport at the age of 12 as an inner-city Houston kid, and he rolled that love of fishing into a career as a guide. But along the way, he was also a front man for several funk and rock bands. He's always made me laugh over the 28 years I've known him. A super laid-back, very consistent in his demeanor. He's a highly intelligent, charismatic guy. Listen as he tells me of his childhood in Houston and protecting his home from family intruders with a shotgun. He also breaks down what it takes to be the best guide you can be. Listen to other stories from the man himself, Alvin Dedeaux. What's up, Alvin? Good to see you, buddy.
Not much. Drinking some coffee.
Rainy, cold day.
Yeah,
Neither one of us
up.
fishing today.
No,
Good chance to rap about some stuff. Both of us are Houston kids, man. How'd we end up fly fishing guides?
Oh, man. It was a long path. I told you about how I got my first fly rod, right?
Tell me again.
So I read about fly fishing in a book at school, and I was 11. And I told my parents that I wanted a fly rod for my 12th birthday. And somehow or another, they found it. And it was a yellow 7-weight Eagle Claw with a Martin reel with a level line on it.
Sweet.
And I taught myself how to fish, how to fly fish.
That was 12 years old.
12 years old, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's unlikely for anybody in Houston of that age to have a concept of fly fishing. Do you remember where you were inspired?
No, man, that book. I mean, I fished. My dad fished. My grandparents fished. My uncles, my cousins, we all fished, but nobody fly fished. I read about it in the book at school, and I was just like, oh man, that sounds interesting. I mean, I'd never seen anybody fly fish, not on TV, not in a magazine.
It made it very mysterious.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty cool. So I don't know. I guess it was supposed to be my thing. I didn't, divine intervention or whatever you want to call it.
I remember even on packages of sort of snelled hooks by Eagle Claw, old school packaging, occasionally there would be a fly rod represented. And if I saw it, then I never followed it up, but I would have all this mystery of why is the round real? How is that supposed to work?
Yeah, at the bottom of the rod.
Yeah. What's that guy doing?
When I was a little kid, I don't remember except for a couple of small, childhood memories riding my bike in the parking lot at my parents' apartment complex. When I got to be old enough to remember, we always lived in the suburbs, kind of like on the edge of civilization, whether it was way south, Fort Bend County, outside of Missouri City and all that stuff, or way north, 1960 Humble, all that area. And I just remember, I could jump over the fence behind my parents' house, depending on time of year, go fishing, go hunting. I remember Saturday mornings, high school age kids walking through the neighborhood with shotguns to go shoot ducks.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't imagine that now.
Yeah, no way.
But six, 14 to 17-year-old boys walking through a neighborhood with shotguns is like, somebody, the SWAT team would be there. But I guess it was a different
thing
time.
To see that and to not suspect any ill will.
Yeah, we were just going hunting.
Just Southern culture.
Yeah, yeah. And, I guess that was technically might have even been within Houston city limits back then. I don't know, but
Fort Bend, yeah.
yeah.
You were, you have 5 other siblings, all girls.
Yep, 5 sisters.
You were the firstborn.
Firstborn,
And
oldest.
your mom at first wasn't extremely pleased with that.
Yeah, that's the story goes. My mom was an only child. She wanted to have a big family. She wanted to have 6 girls. And I was born on her 30th birthday, her first kid. And supposedly she called my grandmother from the hospital and said, well, it's a boy. You can have him. And then she proceeded to have 5 girls after that. But, you know, my joke was like, well, I still ended up being her favorite son, being the only son.
Did you
Wasn't
were
hard to do.
with 5 girls, you know, now you're a married man with 3 gorgeous
3
children.
daughters, yeah.
And, but you were back in the day, you were notoriously a ladies' man.
Yeah.
Do you think having 5 sisters lent
Oh yeah, definitely.
to that skill?
Yeah, well, I think no man can say he completely understands women, but I think I understood them a lot better than most of my peers. So you know that
I was an only
helped.
child, and I still don't have a clue.
Yeah, that definitely helped with the competition. I mean, I had a lot of female friends too, so that didn't hurt. Yeah, I guess I seemed like a safe guy to hang out with if you're a woman, you know. Which, you know, that was fun. It was good. Good being single. Austin was a good place to be single back in those days.
What?
Not as good as being married though.
No, it's better, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll definitely live a lot longer.
Well, you got a good one.
Yeah.
And your girls, it's impossible to think about it not being that way at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I could never imagine.
You and I searched and toiled a long time playing the game. Longer than most. We lasted quite a while.
I know.
Thank God we got saved.
That definitely took some years off my life.
Tell us about something that kind of forced you into manhood at an early age.
Oh, I'm assuming because you've heard this story before. You're talking about my incident with the burglars.
Yeah.
And I want to say I was 17 or 18, 19 at the oldest. You know, so still a kid. I was home for the summer from college, and I guess a little backstory on that is like I'm and this kind of a topical thing right now. I grew up in a house full of guns, a lot of guns, hunting, mostly for hunting, but we also had, you know, other, you know, weapons for just self-defense or just for collecting them because they were cool and different.
Yeah.
Legal, maybe some of them illegal.
It was natural to own firearms
in
abundance back then.
Yeah. So I was always taught, you know, a lot of respect for firearms, weapons. You know, you don't point a weapon at something unless you're going to pull the trigger, and you don't pull the trigger unless you're going to kill it. You know, you don't shoot to maim. And so with that mindset, I was hanging out with my grandparents for the summer. My mom comes over one day and she said, I need you to go over to the house, which was her house she bought before she met my dad. And it was vacant at the time. So we had some stuff stored there. It's down the street, not too far from my grandparents' house. This is before the ages of cell phones. And somebody had broken into the house and taken a bunch of stuff. And they had actually taken my mom's piano that she dragged all over the place with her for years, and had moved the piano near the back door. And I guess they were coming back later to get the piano, which is pretty ballsy, you know. I mean, they broke in, stole stuff, and then were preparing to come back and take more stuff. So my mom's like, I need you to go to the house, take some guns with you in case they come back. And she said, you know, if they do come back, like shoot them in the kneecap or something. So I got several guns, rifle, shotgun. I don't think I had a...
Did you feel like this was a real potential situation? Did it get you immediately alert, or were you like, okay, Mom, whatever?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, you know,
it was a serious situation. Y'all had been robbed.
Yeah, and you know, and any time, like I said, I had a serious respect for for firearms. So I mean, it wasn't like I was sitting in the house with several guns. So that
You were on point.
yeah, that's a pretty serious situation. So my mom says, wait here. I'm going to go get your dad. He's at work, but he's got several job sites going at any time. So she can't call him on the cell phone. So she's got to go find him. So I'm sitting in the house and it starts to get dark and I hear a truck backing up.
No way.
Yeah. And I'm like, the house
by
is,
yourself. 100%
I'm by myself. Yeah.
Good. No, none of your sisters.
Nobody.
Hiding in the back room.
The house is empty except for, some stuff we had stored there. And I hear this truck backing up and the house is kind of in the back corner of this, about an acre lot. And I look out and I see somebody just kind of moving the brush out of the way as this guy's back in this pickup truck. It's like, like they live there, and it was a man and a woman and it had gotten dark. So I took the shotgun because I was like, well, easier to hit somebody with a shotgun when it's getting dark than trying to hit them with a rifle. Because I'm thinking, logically in this situation. And so I see this woman just like casually moving the brush aside so her guy that she's with can just back the truck up. And I just got really angry. And
like these fools are about to come in my house.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm a kid still. So, there's probably a little bit of, maybe could have been a little bit more mature, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, I got to stop this. And the way to stop it immediately is to fire the weapon, to fire the shotgun. And so, my training was, you shoot to kill. And so I pulled the trigger. Luckily, nothing happened. I mean, and my life would have been completely different if something would have happened, because I was shooting to kill.
Yeah.
And so I pumped it and the shell popped out and the woman looked at me and the shotgun and immediately took off at a sprint. She was gone.
How close was she?
Close enough to where it would not have ended well. And so the guy continued to back up, which made me even just madder. I mean, I was just like, these people have no respect, you know? I mean, obviously he didn't know what had happened. He didn't hear. He's backing the truck up.
You never catch a thief. You never, that's the least solved crime in the world. Yeah. So to see someone acting like naturally just and comfortably invading your space, it's got to be just infuriating.
Yeah. So I fired and then I pumped and I fired again and he took off in the truck and made it out of the parking lot across the street, smashed into an apartment complex across the street. And then, this is my duck gun, so it's only got 3 shells in it. So I'm like, I'm out. So I got to go. So I left everything there and I ran and I jumped the fence and I went to the neighbor's house, which was a little bit away, and, called my grandmother, and my parents were at my grandmother's house kind of like hanging out. And I'm like, whoa, I need some help, So they showed up and the guy had fled the scene. The back windshield of the pickup truck was gone and there was some blood.
But he got hit.
Yeah, he was obviously able to flee the scene. And, we called police. Houston Police Department shows up. Remember, there's 2 cops. And my dad, of course, was really concerned about me being in trouble for shooting somebody. So he was trying to pretend like he was the one who shot the guys that were trying to rob us. And but the cops kept asking more questions, and my dad was kind of like didn't have the answers, and he kept looking over at me, and I was kind of like making signs to try to like tell him what happened. And finally the cops realized like, oh, you didn't do this, you did. And they pointed to me and I said, yeah. And the cops kind of looked at me and said, so you were standing here with the shotgun and you did this? And I was like, yeah. And the one cop just comes over and pats me on the back. Good shooting, son. And I was like, well, I used to teach rifle and shotgun merit badge and this and that. And, it was, I don't know, it was a situation that really made me, like prior to pulling the trigger the first time, I was not sure if I could shoot a person. And I would never, hope I'm never in the situation where I have to.
Yeah, I think a lot of
again.
people, right? They say, man, I wish I could catch the person who breaking into my car. If I caught him in the act.
Yeah. And
until you're in that situation.
Yeah. And I hadn't, I've told the story before plenty of times, but, now I'm getting all feeling kind of emotional about it.
Yeah.
Because, it really is, it could have gone a completely different way. And, I'm nervous because I'm like, well, if I'm ever in that situation again, I know what I would do. And that's not something I want to live with. Think about, So luckily the guy was okay. He ended up, we found out later, he was actually a family friend and knew what was going on and that it was kind of an easy target for him. He thought an easy target.
Where'd you end up hitting him?
In the like upper arm, he was backing the truck up with his
left shoulder, kind of through the
no right shoulder, because he's backing the truck up with his arm
through
over
the back windshield.
Yeah, with his arm over the bench seat, backing up just real casually. So yeah, he was it was pretty good injury, but nothing life threatening, and probably learned a lesson that day. I hope I definitely learned a lesson.
You're the only person outside of military or law enforcement that I personally know that's ever lived or been through a situation like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it. I've heard you tell it in typical Alvin style, a little bit of humor, but I knew it had an impact on you. Did that bring an end to your Houston days? Was it like time to hit the road after that?
That was the last summer that was the last summer I lived in Houston. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I was, it was a weird summer. I do remember, and very strange now, because a lot of that, that was definitely had an impact on me. And I did that entire summer. I had a lot of bad dreams, and I just kind of worked through it. And I
imagine your adrenaline and your fear and your survival was just through the roof.
But I think that was I just realized that summer that I wasn't a kid anymore and had to be responsible for myself, and I just took off. And
you never carried a gun or lived in a way fearful of
not at all
of being a victim of crime or anything beyond that. That was just an extraordinary situation.
I never felt unsafe or threatened or the need to arm myself at all times. I still don't, and I guess the world has gotten crazier than it was back then, but I do still feel like, just kind of try to not end up in the wrong place at the wrong time.
No, hold on. That's an interesting point. You're known to just be super sort of like consistent in your behavior, which is just Mr. Mellow, Mr. Cool, funny, inviting, or intelligent, well-spoken. And it in all the years I've known you, I would say there's only a couple times where I've seen you even angry, visually angry. I'm sure you go through all the same emotions that we all do on a constant basis. Do you think that some experiences like that, sort of, that were over the top, kind of made it hard to rock you beyond that? Or do you think you've always just sort of been this guy that lets little things slide?
I don't know. I think it's, when I was younger, I was definitely more excitable. I guess it's maybe years of kind of personal training, for lack of a better term. I've tried to stay a little bit above the fray. Sometimes not always the best. There's times where I have been calm and detached when I'm thinking, I should be a little bit more involved in this situation, you know. So it's definitely something that has served me well, but it is also at times been not the best, you know. But I do seem to be, I mean, for me anyway, it seems like when the more things get chaotic, the more I try to kind of calm myself down and stay centered, stay focused, and, you know, be helpful. A lot of times, that is one of the things I do feel good about being sort of this calm, cool, collected character most of the time is that, you know, when things get hectic and chaotic, I do, I am able to help myself and help people around me kind of overcome that or kind of find a path out of the chaos. So that's
the
a good
benefit
thing.
of being an old school vet.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, and I think that was maybe part of it. I purposely put myself in a lot of crazy situations over the years just to kind of see what was going to be the outcome, you know? So yeah, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I've done a few crazy things, but I've definitely watched a lot more people do crazy stuff. Not everybody would agree with that assessment, but I think I was a lot of times the bystander to some of these, you know, crazy incidents.
Yeah. You know, back in our day, like conflict was up close and personal.
Mm-hmm.
There was no thinking about driving by someone's house and shooting at them or something. If you caused a problem, you were probably going to meet that person after school near the bus yard. And if you weren't a good fighter, you were going to have to face the prospect of physical violence and get hurt. So I think that kids sort of, the pack ruled the pack back then.
Yeah. You know, and I noticed the whole, like the internet, people can definitely be a lot more, you know, you can be anonymous and you can be a bully, you can be a troll, and you never have to really answer for that type of behavior. And I do remember, you know, even
you still have to be a miserable person, I would suppose.
Yeah, at home alone, but you know, your impact is magnified. I mean, you know, I remember, you know, Kelly, the bully, when I was in high school, and you know, he picked on a few people here and there, but you know, his reach wasn't nearly as broad as a bully can be nowadays with the internet, and you know, and you know, and you can just be a mean, you know, at least Kelly was a big, strong dude that could kick somebody's ass. You know, now you can be sitting at home, you know, on your computer and be a scrawny little guy and just be bullying people all over the world, which is kind of a bummer, you know. But I do remember, even I want to say definitely within the last 20 years, being in situations where I was like, yeah, you know, I probably shouldn't have done that to that guy, and I'm probably going to run into him somewhere, and you know, he may kick my ass, you know. And that's always like a kind of a, like, all right, well, yeah. You
get those butterflies walking into a bar where you know he might be, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's healthy.
Yeah.
That's the deterrent, right?
Yeah.
The threat of getting your ass kicked. That was what defined the old days.
What's crazy though is you never thought, like, you know, he was going to show up with a gun and shoot you. You know, I mean, that was like, we never even thought about that. Yeah, maybe getting punched in the face a couple times or something, or you know, even beat up, but you know, it wasn't like I was afraid that, you know, somebody
for
was
your
gonna,
life.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That's definitely a change, a different thing nowadays.
So when did you get out of Houston? Remember what year it was?
Would have been maybe 83.
And just like punk rock, I don't think you or I got into fly fishing with any notion that would ever lead to any sort of.
No, I never thought I'd be
financially, right? Like
yeah,
I didn't see that it was a possibility back then. I wish I had.
Yeah, me
too. I wish I had just initially gone. Well, we started guiding almost right away, but not on a level that seemed that it could be long term.
It was just
stability.
It was just some extra cash on the side.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, you know, how can I do this all the time? Well, I can get a few $100 from taking somebody with me, and sort of kept us out of like real work, I suppose.
It was cool though. Kind of happened organically, I thought. You know, just, I mean, I started working at the angler. We started doing a few trips here and there, and then the angler went away, and then I was like, oh well, I guess I'll just keep doing this, and never really thought about it. People ask me like, how'd you get into it? I was like, I don't know, it just kind of happened.
It did.
I guess if you believe in fate, I guess that was mine from the start. I'm sure glad to be where I'm at now.
Yeah. So how many years did you guide after the angler closed? Was that 04? The angler closed?
Yeah, angler closed 04. Yeah.
How long did you guide independently before you started all water guides and started running more guides and more trips?
Man, from 04, I think I started. I think I put up the All Water Guides website in 2010 or 2011. It was 2011, I think. So it's hard. I can't believe it's been that long because it seems like that just happened. But yeah, so I guess I guided just as an independent guide from 04 till 2011. And I was still sort of, I guess, an independent guide. Now I'm sort of working for All Water Guides, kind of winding down my my personal, website and everything. It's still there, but fortunately, I gotten to the point now where I'm doing about as many trips as I can do. So I'm really kind of trying to spread the love, promote some of these other guys, some of these younger guys that are coming up. Some of the guys that I've been working with for years that, for whatever reason, don't, aren't into the whole marketing game. Just kind of, like I said, spreading the love, getting people on the water with people I would want to fish with.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing.
Sure. You're not going to recommend someone to an angler who you don't trust or wouldn't want to fish with yourself.
Yeah, that I wouldn't want to fish with.
Those are, that's tough because there's only a few people out there I want to fish with.
Yeah. Well, luckily,
in terms of guides, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few good ones out there, though.
It seemed to me something that impressed me is as what initially began as just an exploration for you and I in fly fishing. I mean, it didn't at the time seem unlikely, but looking back at it, I had hair to my waist. You had dreadlocks to your waist. You were in a band. I was just a aimless partier trying to figure out where I was going in life, and fly fishing just was this extremely fascinating and fun beacon of hope. It was the one healthy thing that I engaged in constantly, and it just felt like a lifeline to me. And as it became sort of popularized, which it certainly wasn't when we began fishing, no. If you didn't sort of just cosmically find your way to fly fishing and it didn't grab you, then you weren't going to do it to be popular. Like, it was a fringe sport with very little following. Most of the heroes of the sport were older, sort of
unknown to the general population.
There was no money in the sport. The technology was and at the beginning we kind of started right as the transition from older tackle to newer tackle. The transition from fiberglass to graphite, and some of those rods, if you remember the early Sage GFLs.
Oh yeah.
And say like the Winston was the IM before it was the IM6. Robert McCurdy famously called the IM nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's legendary stuff that was just commonplace to us in the early days. And then fast forward, I watched you kind of get your social media thing together, start playing around with that and engaging in that at the very onset. Yeah. Whereas I saw it as a real threat and curse to the sport, it was reality. You picked up on that, and you sort of, in our group at least, were on the pushing the edge of fly fishing full time, trying to run other guides, and developing your social media. I was very resistant to that, and I'm glad that you sort of lit the path, because I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
How do you find the balance, and what do you think that's done to the sport? Like, idealistically, I'm still not in favor of it, but I think I've got it wrong. Tell me, from your perspective, how has social media hurt the sport? How has it helped the sport?
Yeah, I don't think you got it wrong. I mean, there's definitely, there's a lot of really good stuff on social media in the world of fly fishing, and there's a lot of crap too. And it's man, it's so hard to filter it all out. I think it's really positive in a lot of ways because it's exposing people to the sport and it's expanding the sport. You know, it's not just a bunch of old white dudes or a bunch of old rich white dudes fishing for trout, you know, in some little stream wearing their tweed jackets.
Yeah.
You know, it's expanding the sport to, you know, different fish, different fisheries, different people, you know, different parts of the world. You know, so I think that's definitely a positive aspect, and I would say majority of it, my feelings on that would be positive. But you know, it's just like anything else. There's also the negatives. You know, the exploitation, the you know, just the kind of look at me aspect of social media.
A lot of attention seeking on there.
Yeah. You know, I mean, so
I would have never guessed fly fishing would become a platform for people looking for attention.
Yeah, that's weird. It is kind of weird because it's such a, you know, for the longest time it was such an obscure niche sport that we just did, you know, for the hell of it, and now it's something where you can actually get famous, you know.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of like comparing it back to punk rock.
You got to keep it in perspective, though, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, being famous in fly fishing is close to nothing.
Yeah, being, you know, the most famous dog catcher in the world,
or curler.
Yeah.
With the Olympics on us right now, like
But you know, I equate it back to the whole punk rock thing. I mean, when we started doing it, even when I put my original website up, which was in '01, I didn't do it. I didn't ever think it was going to be something that was going to be. I was hopeful that I could maybe make a living at it. You know, after a while, I kind of realized that might have been possible, but that was about as much as I was expecting, was to just be able to pay my bills, you know. And I just did it because that's what I wanted to do. And in some ways, I was like, that's all I can do. That's the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
I hope it works out, because if I got to do something else, that's going to suck, you know, because I don't know how to do anything else. So, you know, I feel lucky that it actually has turned into something. But at the same time, I think I'd still be doing it, even if it wasn't something, even if I was still struggling. I'm pretty sure that I'd still be doing it, because it is, to me, it's like the next extension of punk rock. You know?
No, and that's been a valuable perspective for me, because I was convinced early on that you could either be good at fishing or good at promoting yourself, but not both, right?
Yeah,
and that applies to music, art, any other career that you might choose. And we were exposed through the angler, since it was a shop on the map. Remember the MasterCard commercial, right, in the early 80s?
Yeah. They don't take American Express. Yeah.
That was played during the
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think like 87 maybe.
And remember how many customers would come in saying they had seen that? Really. And so we were exposed to a lot of personalities in the sport that we would bring for seminars to the Austin Angler.
Oh yeah.
And I think Joey, you and myself were cynical on the personality side, because our respect was with individuals who are sort of anonymous in the sport, who are hardcore fishermen in their area.
Yeah.
They weren't out for any attention, and we knew for a fact they were going out on a daily basis and discovering new ways to use a fly rod.
Yeah.
And we were doing that same thing before 9/11.
Yeah.
We had access to all the spillways below the dams in the hill country. The whole chain of lakes were at our disposal. You could park on top of the dam and walk directly below and catch striper and white bass. And that was just part of our weekly route, was to hit the dams, maybe go to Guadalupe, wait on the white bass run, canoe the Llano and it was just to get away from everybody. There was never, I don't think we even really carried cameras unless it was some destination trip we were doing to the Rockies, and we'd buy a handful of those disposable 35 millimeters.
Yeah.
But you know, there's been positives, and I think it was you that sort of convinced me you can be good at both, and it doesn't have to be perverse to promote yourself and your experiences. It can be genuine, and that's helped me to to build my business.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think the people that are out for only attention expose themselves quickly amongst the peers. And
yeah, it's kind of
in
hard
the
to tell
sport.
sometimes just from looking at somebody's social media posts whether where they're coming from. You can't really like see somebody's personality on Instagram, but I think it all comes out in the wash. I mean, people, you start actually getting out and having experiences with people, and people having experiences
Our clients
with
have
you.
talked to us about other guides that they would never go with again. And it didn't take them multiple trips with those people to make that determination.
Yeah, people are smart.
What about, you've always been super modest in your personality, I would say, regardless of the fishing and the conditions, people want to go fish with Alvin Dedeaux.
Yeah.
And there's a kindness and a genuineness to you that attract people as clients. They want to come fish with you. You're a cult of personality within the sport, and it's come very easy from just being yourself.
That's all I can do, man. I mean, I guess it's not my jokes. My wife says my jokes are terrible, so that's not why people.
It's definitely the delivery, dude.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you can say happy birthday in a certain way that's funny.
Yeah. I guess once you've heard all the jokes like 10 times over, they're not as funny. But you get in the boat, you get to hear the jokes for a day. Then it's like, oh, that was fun.
My first time to go saltwater fly fishing was with you.
Oh yeah.
Well, after I got my fly rod, you'd already been down to the coast and you'd been fishing since you got your rod when you were 12. I want to say I was 21, about to turn 22.
Oh, really?
Found the Austin Angler after having a real bad leg injury. And I was real popular in the store because I happened to make it up those old rickety steps with 2 crutches and a hip cast.
Oh, shit.
And I literally halfway up like teetered, and I sort of got a blackout moment from painkillers I was on.
Oh.
And I almost fell backwards down the stairs. So I grabbed the rail and had to sit down for a second, and they heard it in the store. I remember Larry opened it, and Bill and Joe were looking down, and they kind of helped me up in there and just like, what are you doing? And they sat me in a chair.
I didn't know that.
And then Larry, I got a Sage DS outfit, 690 DS to start.
Yeah.
And it came with a little cast reel. I forget who made that little reel.
That reel, yeah.
And they gave me videos of Gary Borger and Jimmy Nix tying deer hair bugs and all those old VHS tapes that sat in the angler and aged and lost their labels and collected dust over the years. But that was just magic to me. I was still in my cast, but I would go set up a stool in the yard. I would go watch
Mel Krieger.
Mel Krieger's videos. Excuse me, of course, Mel Krieger and Lefties.
How do you do it?
Yeah. And I'd race back outside on my crutches, sit on the stool, and if I didn't get it right, I'd go rewind the tape and watch it again. And I did that for 6 months before I could walk into the store at Whole Earth and meet you, because at the Angler, I said, okay, I got my cast off. I'm ready to go fishing. Who should I go? And they said, man, you got to go meet Alvin. And they described you. And I said, the singer for that funk band? And he fly fishes? I was like, no way.
Yeah.
So I barged into Whole Earth. You were working the front counter.
Yeah.
And you were like, yo, what's up? I was like, dude, we're going fishing this weekend. You go, we are? And we went down and parked at Brown and Root Flats near the ferry in Port Aransas.
Partied all night.
And partied all night. And that started our friendship, which is now in its 28th year.
That's crazy. I'll tell you something funny that people don't believe. When you first came in there and we first kind of started hanging out, I told several people, like, they were like, what's that JT dude like? I was like, oh, he's pretty quiet, kind of shy, pretty reserved. For real.
I was on my best behavior. I was reverent. I wanted you.
It was funny though. I was like, they were like, JT? I was like, yeah, he's pretty quiet.
It must have been all those Gary Borger videos.
Maybe,
he conducts himself with quite a bit of modesty.
I was like, damn.
So
little did I know.
When you started guiding, you focused mainly on the hill country rivers, and you've been going to Colorado for years and years, fishing up around on the Blue and the Eagle
the Colorado, the Royal Fork.
And now you've got a captain's license, which salt, I would say, outweighed your freshwater preference early on. When I first met you,
oh yeah, I was
in the early '90s, you were on the redfish.
Yeah, that was definitely,
And then, you had a job at the Angler. That was a 40-hour-a-week job, even though you had a lot of benefits. Fishing was your business, so
yeah,
you could miss a day to go fishing. That was all.
yeah, that was a good thing.
That was all acceptable behavior. Yeah. But so that kept you away from the salt. It's only 3 hours to the coast from here, but we have a lot of opportunities with a fly rod right around Austin.
Yeah.
Then fast forward a number of years, like now you're just getting your feet back into the salt and you're starting to pass on some of your Guadalupe trips to your other guides, which I think is an absolutely normal transition.
Yeah.
If you could, would your preference be a saltwater guide all the time? Or do you like to mix it up? Where's the balance in that for you?
I like them both. And that's the good thing about being here is we got lots of opportunities. I guess the saltwater currently is definitely more exciting because, I'm definitely on more of a learning curve with that. I've done it for years and years, but not as a guide. And so I'm learning new stuff. It's definitely not boring. And, running a skiff is a whole nother, set of opportunities and potential problems. So I really love that, the whole mechanical aspect of boats and motors and all that.
I would say that drives me to be a saltwater guide more than anything else. I love
boats and motors.
My skiffs and my boats. I love that so much. To office out of a flat skiff.
Yeah. It's crazy.
My ultimate dream. I feel so good when the truck's parked, the boat's in the water, and I'm sitting in it waiting on my clients. I could not be more confident or happier in that moment.
Well, it's funny because I still, so I work out of 3 boats: a raft, the jet boat, and the skiff. And obviously the raft is like kind of the where I started. And, after a week or so of running the skiff and then like, okay, I got a trip on the San Marcos. I got to use a raft. And I love zipping around, in the skiff. But then on those days when I just dump the raft in and just get in it and sit down and there's just me and the oars, it's something that's really nice and relaxing about that simplicity.
Yeah.
Like I'm not concerned about, running too shallow or
zero mechanical issues.
Yes. And it's a boat. I'm in the water, so I think I really like I like them all. Like somebody asked me, people ask me all the time, well, what's your favorite? And I was like, it's hard to say what's my favorite. It's kind of like whatever I'm going to do next is my favorite. If I've been rowing the boat down the river for a week or a month or whatever, and I know I'm about to have like a run of, a bunch of trips on the coast, that's my favorite because that's what I'm going to do next. But if I've been at the coast and, it's hot and all of a sudden I'm going to go and spend, a week or so on the river, I'm like, I'm really looking forward to that because it's like a totally different feel. And it was kind of the same thing with going from Texas to Colorado and back. I really liked being in the mountains. When I was in the mountains, I'd start getting hot here and I'd be thinking like, oh man, just a couple more weeks and I'll be rowing down some cold, clear, mountain stream. But then after a couple months of that, I'd be like, I can't wait to get back to Texas, some warm water, some margaritas and some Mexican food. So it's just,
we don't really have seasons down here so much. So you're out making your seasons happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I'm pretty much, like I was telling somebody the other day, I think I've retired from being a trout guide in the mountains. And I definitely want to go to the mountains and relax and be on vacation. But I think I'm pretty much, I'm probably focusing more of my mental energy on the coast. Like I said, because I'm still in the learning stage on that. The freshwater stuff, not that you ever have any fishery completely figured out, but I feel pretty confident I can just wake up in the morning and hit one of the rivers without really thinking too much about it, and it'll work out. So yeah, it's nice to have the options though. But the coast is so vast.
I was thinking, well, it's the same for me, and I was going, wait, now you just got saltwater nowadays, but 100-mile stretch of the coast can vary drastically in
Oh, yeah.
its features,
Yeah.
and conditions can vary on a daily basis dramatically in that same distance. And so I find myself getting bored of polling the same routes.
Yeah.
And so
Just go to a different
I'm
area to
always
see
going
some
to a different area,
Yeah.
30 miles north or 30 miles south. And it opens up that same feeling of like,
Yeah.
discovery.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not every client that you feel comfortable going to check out a new spot with.
Yeah.
But let me ask you about that. So, I didn't have the money to get guided very much
Me neither.
throughout the history of it was all pretty much me and a fly rod and just pounding the water, right? I would have dreamt to have been guided in certain water by certain guides early in the day, but it just wasn't an option for me, so I never focused on it. But in terms of guides, I deal with a lot of customers, clients who it's notorious that fly fishing guides, especially in saltwater, but not exclusively, can be real jerks, can be real hard on their clients. What do you think that's all about? Do you think some people are just that way? Because there's a lot of different versions of it, and some of it's acceptable and some of it's not. For instance, if a guide becomes angry and is super passionate, but you get a feeling that he is trying so hard to get you hooked up, and that's his main objective, and that the frustration and anger is a result of his passion working for you, wanting that success.
Yeah.
And people tend to I find people tend to be accepting of that abuse.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, I feel like, are being jerks because they heard that's what you're supposed to do when you're a fly fishing guide. But ultimately, being calm, like the two of us, I think our reputation suggests that we're pretty patient and easygoing and fun to be around. And I think in the long haul for me, that's really paid off. Not getting angry with people and ruining their experience. What's your thought on that?
I'm on tape.
What do you make of mean guides?
Oh yeah. So I've thought about it a lot, and you always hear it's saltwater guides, but a lot of people
For the most part.
a lot of people have also heard of the trout Nazi, which is the freshwater version of the mean saltwater guide, and it's a weird thing. I mean, I think it's definitely a fine line between somebody who's just really honestly excited and trying to help, you get a fish, get a big fish, whatever, trying to really help you be successful. And I can see the excitement coming out. But I think, and some people really thrive in that environment. Some people actually do like for their guide to yell at them. I mean, I've been out with people and I can tell that they need more from the guide. They need more instruction. Some people just need like almost a continuous stream of, not even necessarily commands, but just kind of suggestions. Cast it over here, try this, do that, and they work better with that. And sometimes they even feel like, oh, well, I'm getting my money's worth because he's guiding me. He's not just like sitting back there doing whatever. But I think it's the guides that are really good, whether they yell or they don't yell, are the ones that actually figure out what it is that client needs. I mean, I'm not the type of person that's going to yell at anybody. I can't imagine anything that would make me yell at anybody other than doing something that's dangerous.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is I think you got to figure out what your client needs. And, some people are not going to respond at all to yelling. And if that's your only MO, then I think you're limiting yourself as a guide, because there's people who are not going to want to go with you more than once, or if they heard from their friend, ever. So I think if you're flexible, because your clients are all different and everybody's got a little bit different style of the way they do things or the way they learn things, what makes them feel at ease. And so I think you really got to read who you're fishing with and then kind of tailor the experience to that. Obviously, you're not going to be a different guide or a different person. You're going to be the same person. But I think you just really got to try to tune in to your client and what their needs are. And I think then everybody has a better trip. The guy's not feeling beat down at the end of the day because you were yelling at him, and then your blood pressure's not up at the end of the day because you were letting this guy piss you off and you just had to yell at him all day because he couldn't cast. I mean, so I personally I can't see it. It doesn't work for me, but somebody for everybody out there.
It's true. And there's different versions of mean guides, right?
Yeah. I mean,
some are just trying to make a name and they think they need to be mean in order to be recognized.
Mm-hmm. He's a hard ass, He's really serious.
And you're right. I have heard from certain clients, different personality types reporting on the same guide, and a lot of people can take it and give it. And those are typically good candidates for
a little bit more aggressive style out there.
Right. And you're right. Some people don't really get their performance up until they've been ridden a little bit.
Yeah. You kind of get them pumped up, get them in the zone. I mean, I've had people. One of my really good buddies up in Colorado, this guy Brody Henderson. He, occasionally we'd swap off. Like he'd have something going where he couldn't take one of his clients, and I remember taking some of his real regular clients, and we had a great day of fishing, and they caught a lot of fish, but they talked to him at the end of the day, and they were like, yeah, man, Alvin's awesome. We love fishing with him. I think he was afraid to yell at us though, because you yell at us, you know us real well, and you don't mind yelling at us, and it helps us out, And but Alvin, he didn't yell at us. Huh? Yeah, it was it was different, but it was kind of like they were, and they've got a solid multi-year, tons of trips. They've got a relationship together, and so he knows where they are, and he knows what works with them. This is my first time fishing with them, so I just kind of doing my regular routine, kind of feeling them out. Like I said, we had a great trip. We had fun. We caught lots of fish, but they were actually used to a little bit more, kind of aggressive, like get it up, pick that up, oh, no, not there, and it's funny.
When personalities line up to the point where you can give somebody a lot of shit and take a lot of shit back, that's a lot of fun. You can do that with repeat clients.
Yeah,
I find that I'm mellow and friendly so often that if I ever do show frustration, they think they really made me mad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's tough to spring it on them on occasion versus being consistent with that behavior, because it gives them something to get used to if you're constantly pissed off. You know what I mean? I could work on that a little bit. Those are interesting points. I think there's a definite detriment to being too mellow.
Yeah.
People
Because
are gonna think you don't care. And
the
best job
and I'll occasionally, I'm out there and we're just cruising along, especially on the river, because there's a lot of just kind of in between time waiting for something to happen, and I'll kind of get into my own zone and just chilling and watching the water, and then have to occasionally remind myself, okay, let's keep an eye on these guys. Let's make sure they're on point. They're maximizing all their opportunities. So you definitely got to be thinking. You're working. It's a job, so you can't really just be asleep at the wheel,
right,
rowing the boat or poling the boat, and not really.
Of the time,
yeah,
on the water, man.
Yeah.
So, is there ever a time where you wished you had yelled at someone for something but you didn't? And on the flip, is there any time that you did yell at somebody and wish you didn't?
Nah. I mean, I don't have it
out, right?
I don't really have any. Yeah, I don't really have any regrets about that. I mean, I can't ever think of any time where anybody's pissed me off. And occasionally, I mean, it's small stuff. Like I'll tell somebody at the beginning of the day, okay, you need to stay in the middle of the boat when you're up on the casting platform, whether it's on the skiff or on the river. And people always kind of drift over to one side or another. And I maybe, might say, hey, center up. Hey, center up. I'll give them that a few times. And if they continue to drift
Get in
over
the center of the boat.
Now, usually what I do is I just sit there and go, all right, obviously he's not going to get in the center. Let's just deal with it. And then I notice myself just getting worked up into a silent rage. So those are the times when I'm like, okay, I probably should have just told him a couple more times, hey man, just get back in the middle, but other than that, I can't really think of anything. But that lopsided boat thing, that'll wear you out over the course of the day. So better to get that out for sure.
How do you fight burnout in guiding?
Well, I think that the nice thing for me is I got a lot of variety. So I don't really, I'll be at the coast for a while. I'll be on the river for a while. So I'll never really get totally burnt out. That I have.
If we can talk about it, you're really a name on the Guadalupe. Southernmost trout fishery in America.
Yeah.
A place where we would come at 6 a.m. and get back to Austin so you could open up the angler by 10.
Yeah.
And we pounded that water.
Mm-hmm.
We used to walk miles up and down from our car to get back. Now you row that river, and it's a beautiful place. And it's a great opportunity for people to learn. I've guided the Guadalupe for a number of years in the past. You've really made a business and a name for yourself out there, but you're a little over it. You want to talk about that? That's not to say anything bad about the Guadalupe, because like I said, we cut our teeth there.
Yeah.
It's an extremely valuable resource for people to get into the sport.
But it definitely has to become more of a crowd scene. And I think anytime you have more people, you have more opportunities for there to be some jerks, so it's just a kind of a numbers game, really. So it's gotten pretty tough for me. Just because I remember what it was like. And there's other issues, I think related to water flow, a lot of decreased water flow. I think as the area has become more and more popular, there's more water drawn from the river. So we tend to have lower flows there consistently, and that really concentrates the fishermen and makes the fishing tough. And, that also contributes to, most of the fish not making it through the summer. So it's like a fishery that has to be restocked every year, although I know plenty of trout streams out west that are stocked yearly, but the trout definitely have a much harder time making it here. And on the one hand, it is a great resource and people get to practice trout fishing, but on the other hand, there's a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of resources thrown at that fishery, and it's just barely viable, and most years it's not viable. I don't know what the numbers are, but I wouldn't be surprised if 95% of the trout didn't make it from year to year. So then they have to be restocked again every year. And it just from a
How is that in your mind? Is it wrong?
I don't know. It's
to sentence
it's
thousands
weird.
of purchased farm-raised trout to their
I mean, we work so hard and we preach this conservation, catch and release, but then I mean we're basically dooming most of these fish to die a terrible death, within months of them being put in the river. And I don't know.
Should people be having fish fries on the bank with them? Is that a
more I mean,
ethical way to treat that situation?
When conditions are good, the fish do make it, from year to year, and it can be a really amazing fishery when the conditions are right. But
we've sat down there on cold mornings in Texas when a bass wouldn't touch a fly and had healthy trout ripping downstream. I mean, it's tough to condemn it as an inappropriate resource.
And I mean, and from a business standpoint, I mean, I'd kind of be a hypocrite saying that I didn't like the revenue. I mean, it's one of the busier times of year for us. We got tons of guides out. People want to go and fly fish and catch trout, because for a lot of people, fly fishing is trout fishing. And that's one of the things we kind of, I wouldn't say do battle with, but, we definitely try to educate our clientele. And, it's like, okay, you live in Texas and you want to fly fish. You spend a couple weeks in the summer fishing in the mountains, whether it's Colorado or Montana. And then the rest of the year, you don't really fish except for maybe a couple months in the winter on the Guadalupe, which is fine. But you I think, would be a much better fisherman if you took advantage of some of our local native fish and some of our other fisheries. And there's a lot of benefits to that besides just the fact that it's fun. You also become a better fisherman. You get to spend a lot more time doing what you love to do. And I think more people, even though I like the fact that most of our other streams are just virtually untouched, I like that. But having more people actually utilize the resources are just more people that are going to be concerned about the resources and want to help protect the resource. So
a lot of people start out on the Guadalupe not knowing that there's other opportunities in Texas.
Exactly.
Fan out from there, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, so we're taking people fishing on the Guadalupe every day, all winter. But, you know, we're telling them like, hey, man, this is not the only game in town. You want to go fly fishing, you can fish. We got hundreds of miles of other rivers and streams. We got thousands of miles of great saltwater flats. I mean, there's just an endless variety of fly fishing to be done, you know, in Texas. So
give us a quick synopsis, because as the name of your company by design, All Water Guides, you've developed a company of yourself and other guides, even your wife guiding for you now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that gives you a little bit of control over her in this arena where you're the boss, other than at home where, you know, you're not.
Dude.
Tell us about the opportunities in Texas that exist beyond the Guadalupe from All Water Guide standpoint. If someone calls you up or calls All Water Guides to book a trip, what possibilities do they have in Texas? For you specifically, not necessarily your other guides.
Oh, well, you know, so everybody knows about the trout on the Guadalupe during the winter, but really we got a year-round bass fishery on the Colorado. Between Austin and the coast, there's 300 miles of river. We fish about 100 miles of it. If there's 10 boats on that 100 miles, that's a pretty busy day. We've got smaller streams like the Llano and the San Marcos out in the hill country.
To yourself.
Yeah. I mean, but most days you don't see anybody.
Eagles,
yeah.
River otters,
beavers, deer,
hogs,
bobcats.
Coyote, bobcats, and I've seen all those things swimming.
I've seen them all.
A bald eagle.
Oh yeah.
What an underutilized resource. Would you agree? I mean, it literally flows through Austin, and directly below the dam, within the city limits, very few people realize what type of wild environment there is.
I mean, I take people, you know, I'll take people from out of town and we'll put the boat in and we'll motor upriver and, you know, we'll cover 6-8 miles of river. And I tell them jokingly, but it's actually true that, you know, by getting out on that river and seeing those 6 or 8, 10 miles of river, they've probably seen more of the Colorado River than 95% of the people that live in Austin, even though the river itself flows right through downtown Austin. It's sort of like a, you know, underutilized resource. I took a guy fishing on the Colorado, a retired UT professor who'd been in Austin since 1968, fished all over the country and had never been on the Colorado River below Austin. Excuse me, fished all over the world.
What was his take on it?
I asked him, I said, he thought it was amazing. Couldn't believe it. He'd never been out there. And I said, well, what'd you think happened to the water when it left downtown Austin in Lady Bird Lake? And he's like, I don't know. I just never thought about it. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people just don't think about it. It's just not, you know, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't go down there. Is there something down there? You know, I'm kind of the same way though. I go to a bridge that crosses a river and I park and I put my boat in and somebody says, well, where's that road go? And I'm like, I got no idea. It goes away from the river.
Both directions.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I don't know where it goes once it goes away from the river because I go to the river and that's all I need to know, you know. But I guess people are that way, you know. It's like it's not something that's in the front of your mind, so you know, you don't even, it's not like you don't want to explore it. You just don't even have the thought of exploring it.
Talk about some of the other bass streams and the white bass run.
Mm-hmm. We got the Llano River. That's out in kind of West Texas. And that's the cool thing about all these rivers. The Llano River, Guadalupe River, San Marcos River, Colorado River. Those are the main ones we fish on, and they're all totally different. The Llano's out in the kind of rolling hill country, wide open territory, gravel, granite and limestone in places, and then the San Marcos is like a, kind of a more like a almost like a giant spring creek though, with a full canopy of
Super
cypress
tropical,
trees.
elephant ears
Yeah. You look like
cichlids
you feel like you're in the jungle. The Guadalupe is kind of like a cross between the San Marcos and maybe the Colorado, depending on where you are. And Colorado's our big stream. It's cypress trees and kind of mostly flows through the prairie, but it's got some elevation change and cliffs, and it's pretty amazing. And then there's all the smaller streams with San Marcos. I mean, excuse me, not San Marcos, San Gabriel. Brushy Creek up near Round Rock is another popular fly fishing destination. The Nueces, the Medina, some of those smaller ones further out in the hill country, pretty amazing, pretty far from anything. So those rivers hardly ever get fished, and that's some of the most beautiful scenery I've seen anywhere. And then the Devil's River, of course, everybody knows that. I mean, I guess not everybody knows that, but that's become more popular. But you could fish for years in Texas as a fly fisherman and not fish all the waters we have. And that's just the rivers.
And just skimming the surface, much less becoming an authority on a particular area, is a lifetime pursuit.
Oh, yeah.
A confined amount of space.
Yeah, it is. And then we've got all the lakes. We got the coast. I mean, you don't really need to go anywhere else to go fishing.
What would be your, given fair conditions across the board, where would you go fishing if you had a day to yourself?
That's hard to decide, man. I mean, catching bass on a popper, that's pretty hard to beat. I know.
5-pound class.
I know. But then,
3-pound class and up is hard to beat.
But then, redfish in shallow water. I don't know. I mean, if I had to flip a coin and pick one of those two, I don't think you can't go wrong with either one of those.
Right.
I mean, that would be the two highlights, I think, of our, Texas fishing experience.
A lot of people are better suited towards one or the other.
That's true.
Maybe through the technique that they've practiced, or just the aesthetic that's inherent to them as an individual. They draw to a stream over the coast.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me personally, once I experienced sight fishing in saltwater, actually seeing my target and anticipating the right presentation, not just on the hunch that there could be a fish under the surface, I'm going to work this area, but visually having contact with a medium to large size redfish.
Yeah.
When you're new at it, that's a real knee knocker. A lot of
yeah.
Once I experienced that with you as my mentor in the early days, it was really hard to come back for that. I think my preference since the first redfish I caught has always been
the redfish,
saltwater flats.
Yeah.
Well, the hunt into permit and bonefish and tarpon fishing, and tarpon really only being the other battle cry that really calls out to me. I could take redfish over all those other species.
Yeah, except for the tarpon.
I think, and even over the tarpon on a daily basis, based on the casual nature of going redfishing.
Yeah,
it's not, the stakes aren't quite as high. A lot of the same excitement exists, and presenting a fly to a moving target.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean,
the tarpon is on steroids.
Yeah,
it's a whole other thing. And I haven't caught a GT, but that's right up there with a tarpon.
Yeah.
And most it's funny how you learn to discriminate. Bone fishing's not all the same. You might go bone fishing with very little ability. You go to the Yucatan, the guide feels you out and realizes you can only cast 30, 40 feet.
Yeah.
He's just going to put you on mud and schools that
you
can't even see, and you're going to catch 10-inch bonefish. And
all day.
Out of the gate, that's extremely exciting. But it's nothing that would potentially draw an experienced angler back for that.
Yeah.
Sight casting, the more difficult that becomes, I think that creates the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, it's weird. I mean, because I feel the same way, but like you were saying earlier, certain people are drawn to, a certain aesthetic, I mean, I know people, like you said, who have done tons of different types of fishing and have just decided, like, well, you know what I like the most is 8-inch brook trout on a dry fly, and I know people who've caught tarpon and who've caught, permit and who've caught all kinds of fish, but they're like, that's my favorite thing,
Yeah.
or guys who, my favorite client, Ron, he's fished all over the place. He's caught all kinds of fish, and he loves saltwater fishing. He loves freshwater fishing. He doesn't care how big the fish are. That's it. He just wants to catch a lot of them. And he doesn't, I mean, he honestly does not care. He told me he was, this is a funny story, but he told me he caught his first tarpon and he was so excited. And then he saw his client, his guide said, "Hey, there's another tarpon." He's like, "How big is it?" 70 pounds. "Oh, are you going to be upset if I don't cast to it? Because I really don't want to be fighting that fish for however long it takes me to land that fish, when maybe I could have landed 2 or 3 smaller fish in the same amount of time." And he is completely honest, So it's weird. People just decide that this is what I like the most, and that's what they do, And a lot of times it doesn't make any sense to me. But, sight casting to any type of fish, especially a medium or large size saltwater fish, is, I would say, probably for me the most exciting thing. Whether that's the first thing I want to do, I wake up in the morning or not, is definitely the most exciting. I do appreciate catching, trout on dry flies, and, I love catching bass on poppers, but definitely sight casting to a moving target, most exciting, hands down. Yeah. I would agree with you.
Some of my favorite stories from the angler days that I would get the most excited when someone whose mom or dad had bought them a fly rod at a very young age had come back into the shop to share their early experiences, which might have just been going through the woods behind their house to a tributary of Onion Creek and some little hole that they grew up swimming in, and never realized they were perching bass in it, and come racing back into the shop. It's just this minor version of an exploration of their immediate area with their first fly rod, and just the meaning of a colorful sunfish, or a 1-pound bass or something that existed in waters that ran close to their property where they grew up, and the amount of just contentment and excitement that they share through those stories, versus, and also not to condemn it, but someone with a well-paying job who could afford to, say, go to the Seychelles and catch their first. Like, it was like, sure, you caught a bluefin trevally, you went to the Seychelles, but to see what a fly rod and the effect it has on a young person when they realize that it's not something outside of their ability, that it's an attainable, exercise or a technique that they learn to put to use, and start at the bottom and work their way up. You remember Noah?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he was a kid that
he was a little kid,
just a little baby-faced kid that came in with his
8
dad,
years old,
tagging along, 8 years old, and we had the opportunity to fish with him and the Howler folks recently, and Christian Pretorius.
Yeah.
And Noah and Christian were, they're in their 20s. They're young men. They were emptying out an entire fly line on across the body back cast into the wind. Yeah. It's amazing, the
stuff that I can't do, never could do.
The ability that they've gained. And I don't believe it to be true, but I hope that the generation that came before us and their limitations and where we pushed it made it possible for the youngest people in the sport now to be doing what they're doing with a fly rod. In lieu of not knowing whether I'll ever get my full potential back again as an old man. I'm really proud to see kids like Noah coming and pushing the sport to new levels. Incredible ability.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. In everything, like you were talking about your BMX injury you had. I used to ride BMX, and we used to do tricks, and thought we were pretty badass and cutting edge. But now you look at people just like, oh my God, doing stuff that we never would imagine. It's the same thing with fly fishing. That's what's cool too, because it's always it's not a stagnant sport. Like I read an article once, this guy who wasn't really much of a fly fisherman. I think he was a journalist, and he had to go to a fly fishing like a trade show or not even a trade show, but just a fly fishing expo. And he said, on his way in, he was imagining just a bunch of, old men in flannel shirts that smelled like urine and, just kind of the smell
I
like
know that guy.
the smell like urine part really stuck with me. And, he was talking about how he was amazed to just see how varied the sport was and how many different types of people were into it and how many different types of things people were chasing after, everything from, sunfish and carp to mako sharks and billfish. And I mean, it's a pretty broad sport. And even a lot of people that are into the sport are amazed when they hear about some of the other things that people are doing. People are catching on fly rods. I mean, anything that swims really. And so it is kind of cool because the sport's obviously not stagnating. And, those young guys, they're, I guess we thought we were doing something new and exciting when we got going. But, now it's like, man, what we were doing was pretty tame compared to what they're doing now, and it hasn't even been, 20 years.
Yeah. That's the evolution. It's awesome.
Trying not to get left behind.
So for a kid from Houston with humble beginnings who got his first fly rod at 12, came to Austin, potentially could have become a giant rock star for our small hometown at the time. You were a rock star to us. I mean, that band was super high energy, super fun, super entertaining, helped shape the early culture of downtown Austin, the rock scene. Then there was Razbone. It didn't go quite as far, did it?
No, I think that was just sort of a, what do you call that? A rebound. No, actually that's kind of a funny story because that was my opportunity because Bad Mother Goose thing was pretty, positive and it was a mixed race and mixed gender, and it was a, democracy, and all the songs were, about, about being good and doing good. And that was that Razbone thing. That was just my opportunity to just be in like just a raunchy rock band, with a bunch of long haired dudes and
you shirtless with like a washboard stomach at the time.
Yeah. I wish
of hair farmers.
I wish I could get that back. But that was totally, or neither will is Scotch, but that was totally an opportunity to, like, oh, we had groupies. And
were you convincing yourself it wasn't all right to be famous, or were you just having fun?
Just having fun. I mean,
back to what music meant to you. Before the possibilities.
Yeah, we were just having fun. I mean, obviously we weren't going to turn down any opportunities. If somebody would have come to us and said, "Here's $1 million, make a record," we would have done it. But we didn't. We didn't really give a shit about that. We just wanted to go out and play some loud music and get drunk and, meet some cute girls. I mean, it's pretty simple.
We didn't think much of it at the time. We talked about Mike Thompson and Joe Robinson, huge figures in the sport. I mean, Mike Thompson's been with Patagonia since the very early days of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Was a rep for them for 30 plus years. Right arm to Yvon Chouinard. An incredible figure in the outdoor world, and he's just a buddy of ours. We got you, myself, and I'm proud of what we've done. We got Joey Lynn down in South America.
Oh yeah,
who for 20 years now went from being our co-worker at the Angler to a host extraordinaire of custom fit trips to Argentina and Chile. Remember when old Dave Mangum came down here for the first time back in the early days?
Yeah, I can't forget old Dave.
So he's really become a dynamo of the sport.
Oh yeah, man.
There was no doubt in that. We'll talk about some of the first time. Remember when me, Zini, and Dave
I remember
he had 2 or 3 trips under his belt down there at the time.
And
he grew up in Florida, right?
Yeah.
He was a fisherman, but he hadn't deployed a fly rod yet. In his technique.
I think he picked that up when he was in Austin.
He came to the Austin Angler as a customer.
Yeah.
Right? And then you took him to the coast. And what did you see in his innate
ability? Dude. Okay, so I still remember the first time Dave and I got on the flat together. And we did it a lot because I had the Austin Angler skiff and Dave had a pickup truck and he was pretty much ready to go anytime. I mean, like Like I think he worked at a bar downtown. I think he'd like get off work at the bar, come to my house, get the skiff, and we would drive straight to the coast in the middle of the night, fish all day, and then drive back. But I remember the first time we got out on the flat, and I was like, all right, so here's what we're looking for. And Dave's like, there's one. I was like, yep, that's a redfish. He's like, there's another one. I was like, yep, that's a redfish. There's another one. And I was like, yep, you got it, dude. Yeah, I know. And I was like, I'm not surprised in the least that he is where he is now. Because, I mean, the dude had it. I mean, not just spotting fish, but I remember just the way he drove that little skiff of ours. You know, I mean, like I've always been kind of cautious and, you know, tend to back off or turn around or slow down. You know, I guess that's just my nature. But Dave was like, you know, balls to the wall. And I mean, he'd pull it off. You know, he was, you know, it was never like we wrecked or something. Dave just kind of had this innate sense of like, oh, okay, we really need to take a right here. And I really need to punch it. And he would, and we'd pull it off every time. So yeah, he's
that was
natural
special to be a part of his early development and fly fishing that way. And now, I mean, yeah, I fish with him for tarpon every year. As I'm on my seventh year. This will be 8 this coming July, right around ICAST. We're still trying to get you out there with us.
Yeah, I might have to go July.
And Rick Wittenbreaker's coming.
Oh, Rick's coming?
For some of the days after ICAST when he can pull away. And yeah, you know, Dave disappeared from our area. And I didn't personally, I don't know if you stayed in touch with him all that time. I lost track of him for at least a decade.
He used to send pictures to the angler every once in a while.
He went off and guided, he was a boat captain in Puerto Rico for a while.
Was he?
Deep sea stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he made a pilgrimage to Alaska and actually became like an incredible Atlantic salmon fly tyer.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of people don't know. I noticed recently he posted some pictures of some flies that he found in a desk or drawer or something. But incredibly talented guy with just innate capabilities. Still proud to know him and be a part of his fishing. It's intense, man. He's on another level that way. And I'm sure he appreciates the time he spent in Austin around us. And the Austin area, it was just a special hub that launched a lot of people's passion for fly fishing.
Got a lot of people. I mean, I still have people, you know, like I'll post a picture of something and some guy will say, man, I still got that 4-weight Scott rod I bought from you 24 years ago, you know.
Like,
and
yeah. I got HP, Scott HPs and heel applies and some of their early trout rods in my boat today. And it's hard for me to reckon that there's on their 25th year.
There's a 6-weight, 9.5 foot ARC sitting right there. I bet there's not a lot of those floating around out there.
The ARC, what did you call that?
I called it at the time the awful rod choice, but it's a very specialized rod and it's awesome at what it's made for. It's not for everything, like a lot of stuff.
Joey and I were in a race to come up with the most sarcastic representation of an acronym. As soon as the shop floor.
Yeah. The awful rod choice.
Looking forward from where you've been. Do you have a 5-year plan?
Shit.
And a 10-year plan, and how those tie into each other? What are your goals beyond what you've achieved in the fly fishing industry?
Man, I just want to keep on going. I mean, you know, obviously you think about at some point like slowing down or retiring or whatever, but I just can't imagine it. You know, I'm thinking, you know, 5 years from now, hopefully I'll be better saltwater guide than I am right now. Hopefully 10 years from now, I'll still be able to do it. You know, I mean, that's really just, if I can just hold what I got, man, for 10 years, I'd be happy, you know.
That's a good point.
Really, if I could.
Well, let's see, you know, I started guiding directly out of college and not sure what value I've ever put my degree to, but no regrets. Your wife went as far as getting her master's degree.
Mm-hmm. And now she's a guide.
Just occurred, and she went straight to becoming a fly fishing guide from there.
Yeah. Now she's got a master's in aquatic resource management.
Oh, that puts
so, you know, that kind of tied in. She's got a lot of, you know, specialized knowledge on water and water use. And so, she's really kind of, I learned a lot of stuff about rivers, especially because that's kind of her specialty is rivers, and how they change, and how they work, and why things are the way they are. So that's pretty cool. So it's I think she wouldn't wouldn't change it, like she wouldn't go back, but I think she's seen the world of guiding as something that's like way cooler than any desk job she could get for any amount of money, which is obviously how I see it. I could never sit at a desk. I mean, I sit in front of my computer uh every day, but 2 or 3 days without being out of the house, I get pretty freaked out, man. It's like
Absolutely.
I get pretty grumpy. So I couldn't imagine 40 hours a week. But
What are your goals in conservation, which is not recent in our mind? I think from the first moment you catch a fish on a fly rod, you get the idea that it's necessary to protect areas to preserve that experience.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I know you and I have both kind of dug in just in our personal behavior. We've eliminated plastic
Mm-hmm.
as something that we consume either in the household or supply on our boats through the use of YETI ramblers and canteens. We're able to eliminate plastic water bottles from our experience.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I bought a case of water bottles. Now it just seems like a pretty foreign concept. Like, well, why would you do that? I mean, I guess occasionally there's a convenience factor. You have to get a bottle of water because that's the only way you can get decent drinking water. But I mean,
In some
short
places,
of
that is
yeah,
the case. You're
yeah,
battling Giardia.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
tough
But
to filter every sip of water that you take in from a third world location. I mean, there's definitely plastic is an amazing product, but it's funny. You go from thinking that there's really no other way, whether you're talking about plastic water bottles or paper towels.
yeah,
Then after a few short months of eliminating those from your world, you kind of get the sense if you're in a situation where you use one where you're kind of overcome with guilt and like, what am I going to do with this thing if I don't
yeah.
find a way to recycle
Gotta
it? It's going to
recycle
be
it.
in the ground for
Yeah.
millennium. So
Well, I'll tell you what.
I would hope that conservative and liberal-minded folks alike could see the value in not
I tell you what.
using a small vessel of water for a sip to quench your thirst and then having this object in space for the rest of your life, the life of
Yeah,
your grandchildren.
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'll tell you what drove that point home for me recently. The Colorado River, as far as local fisheries, that's my favorite one. That's like our home waters, flows right through the middle of our town. And so for my birthday, I was like, I got to do something, positive. I was like, I don't want any presents. I got everything I can want. I'm happy as I can be. So I decided for my birthday, I was going to go to the Colorado River and fill my boat up with trash. And it didn't take very long. And it was mostly plastic bottles. And just seeing the number of plastic bottles floating in the water, on the banks,
and so we're clear, plastic is not a bad thing because you were actually in a plastic boat.
I was in a plastic boat picking up plastic bottles.
Boat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a boat that'll last
exactly. But that really kind of just really made it obvious that it's something that we really got to be careful about. I mean, obviously you can't get rid of them. You can't, never use a piece of plastic or never get something out of a plastic bottle. But I mean, they're a nuisance. I mean, fish in the river downstream of Austin is really noticeable. Anytime there's a big rain, the river rises and all that stuff from the city gets washed into the river. And that's one of the few times that you even know that you're
into the bay.
Oh yeah, ultimately into the bay. Yeah. And that's but just that section of the river close to town is the only time you even really feel like you're near a town is when you see the trash, because you don't see the people. It's not crowded. You don't see houses. You're kind of for all practical purposes, you could be in the wilderness except for the trash. So
at this point in time, every beach in the world, every river in the world
has
Has
got.
examples of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, you can't escape it no matter where you go. So
I'm optimistic and a strong belief that people will find a way to self-regulate their behavior, because we've seen over and over again that regulation doesn't necessarily work. All it does is remove certain privileges that we had before we were unable to self-regulate. So I've got hope in that.
I hope you're right. I wouldn't say I'm completely pessimistic about people learning to take care of, you know, basically take care of ourselves, because that's what, you know, our environment is basically, you know, our
ability to
existence.
survive,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So hopefully we will learn that, but you know, I guess we all just have to do our what little part we can and
in your own home, right?
hope that it adds up. Hope that it makes a difference.
Any closing thoughts to share with the folks out there that are interested in Mr. Dedeaux?
I don't know, man. I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I mean, I'm really thankful to be where I'm at, doing what I'm doing, and you know,
Wetting lines.
the fact that I'm just able to do that every day, and you know, pay my bills, and you know, take care of my family, and you know, I guess that's what life's about. So
Right on.
I'm a lucky man. A lucky
Myself, man, it's been good knowing you all these years, and to
Cheers.
catch up on a personal note and to share those thoughts with folks. I think that's nice.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thanks again for listening to Drifting, presented by YETI and hosted by me, JT Van Zandt. To listen to more episodes, visit yeti.com or search Drifting on iTunes.